Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Doug Pinter on Daily Energy down here in our new studio with our good buddy Jeff Bach with Bach Attorney at Law. What's up, Jeff?
Nothing. How are you doing this morning?
I was wondering if you were awake there. You didn't blink for a few minutes.
Well, it's that long pause that I like to do to let you know that I'm thinking about something.
Very dramatic.
Good morning, Doug.
I tell you what, the smell of fresh paint here is really waking me up.
That's a good point.
Downtown at 707 Main in the new studio. Like the table, we should maybe shoot some dice here towards the end of this game. Maybe make some side wagers. Hey, upset alert! Upset alert this weekend. I got some hot picks. We talked a little bit last night when you came over and we were watching the Washington-Dallas game, which was a debacle.
It was pretty gross.
Kirk Cousins go home.
Yeah, that's the NFL for you, right? You're sure that something's going to happen. Dallas has looked terrible for 3 weeks in a row, so of course they come out and smash, right? Of course, 38-14 is the only way that's going to happen.
Were you looking at my notes? That's what I was checking, what the score was. Because, we were vigorously talking about our disc golf challenge. I put some things out in my backyard so I could practice, which you didn't want to go out at 9:30 last night and take me on.
The fact that you call it things indicates you really are pretty far advanced in disc golf, so that's good.
Yeah.
Brady's
way past. I'm way past the novice stage. Way past. I have 2.5 discs that I like to use. But yeah, upset alert. We have some NFL picks. We talked a little bit last night. And then Tiger Woods, y'all, he's back in the field. And he's actually in contention, just a few shots off the lead, sitting in 8th place this morning. And Porzingis got the results back from his MRI on his ankle, so we'll talk about how long he might be out. They call him the lizard over there in New York because he
slithers. That's a snake, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's scaly. Has really dry skin, maybe.
No, it's because he heals quickly.
Oh,
okay.
That makes sense.
Wow.
You can just pull his tail off and he grows another tail. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, we're off to a hot start here in the new studio downtown. So, Jeff, I know we're going to talk a little bit about guardianship and power of will or power of attorney later.
That's right, yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about what the Cubs are doing up in Chicago. If you haven't hopped on ChicagoCubs.com, get on there and take a look at what they're renovating. If you're not a Cub fan or...
My wife has season tickets, so, I mean, we go.
I get confused. I always thought you were a Notre Dame fan until I remembered you were Michigan, which I sent out something on social media this week, and I attached you in that where Chris Webber 15 years ago was trying to call the timeout.
It was 25 years ago, buddy, sorry.
Man, time flies.
I know, it really does.
15, I would have been.
It really does.
Still living at home in 6th grade, whatever. But he goes to call the timeout, and I think the saying said, we went from going to win to definitely going to lose. So Chris Webber, 25 years ago, trying to call the timeout. No comeback from you on social media. What's up? You busy?
Well, we discussed this a little bit last night. As we discussed, I did go to Michigan. I am an alumni, but then I was 12. So wasn't really too heartbroken. I mean, I'm
trying to get you. I mean, there's just no switch I can flip with you to get you fired up. Let's get back on track here.
Yes, let's do that.
We're a hot mess this morning. I'm a hot mess this morning. The Cubs, right they are doing some renovations. They call it the biggest phase of the 3 phases that they were doing construction-wise. I think everyone knows about the Jumbotrons, the hotel going up across the street, and how they're trying to make it a little bit more family-friendly up around Wrigley Field. This week, construction started for the final facelift to add club boxes, field boxes, as well as improving the concourse when you first come in back behind home plate, running down the first and third base lines. They're going to shift the dugouts down the line a little bit to move the cameras a little closer to home plate, get a little closer to the action. They're going to make the dugouts a little bit wider, a little bit taller as these players take up some size or room in that dugout.
Big adult sons, large beefy boys.
More room to spit some sunflower seeds.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, the expansion's way underway. They got cranes and that in the ballpark, so stay tuned on that. They do anticipate everything being ready for opening day. We'll see. There's a debacle with the bathrooms 2-3 years ago. Remember that?
I do.
Where they didn't have enough porta potties, and unfortunately, maybe some people were using some
alternative methods.
Yeah, used beer cups.
That's too
alternative methods.
That's too bad. Yeah,
you put such a soft touch on things.
I tried to.
Super soft. So, anyways, with the dugouts being shifted down, they're also going to extend these nets. There's a lot of talk about that, especially with the young child getting injured. I looked up a stat in 2014. There were over 1,750 injuries in the MLB, from foul balls to bats. So hopefully the netting going down. I'm a fan of that netting. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, you know, with everything else, right, you have to balance the fan experience. You know, if you're sitting and trying to watch through the net, sometimes it's not as pleasant as without the net. But truthfully, when you think about the injuries, and with so many people, you know, it was one thing 20 years ago when you didn't have a cell phone, when your head's not buried in your cell phone half the time. You know, if you're watching, you can most of the time get out of the way. If you're not watching, man, just like a sitting duck, you know, ball or bat comes right towards you, not good. So I'm in favor of the netting.
Those hardline drives that, you know, Rizzo gets out in front of and just pulls down into the right field seats, those scare me. And you know what? When I'm taking my kids, we're sitting behind the net or up on that second, third level.
Right.
Probably third level. I'm a little cheap.
Yeah, fourth, fifth, whatever.
Are they really going to remember it? They're 10.5.
Not. No.
There's the field. Take a look.
Yeah.
So, hey, the Cubs during the offseason, we were talking a little bit before coming on. Exciting moves. We need a pitcher, right?
Yes.
So they are after. You want to announce them?
I think it's Ohtani, right?
Ohtani.
I'm not going to try the first name.
Yes,
just
Ohtani.
Yeah.
Young phenom overseas. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, 23 years of age. He's unique. He's a pitcher as well as a hitter. They compare him to Aaron Judge, and it's going to take some cash to get him onto the Cubs lineup. But with the Cubs hoping to make friends with him, Epstein flew down to Florida to visit with Madden to discuss the possibilities, and Madden would love to have this guy on the roster. With that being said, here's some names that are being tossed out as trade bait. We have Schwarber, Happ, Baez, and possibly even Addison Russell. So to lure him in, what's your thoughts on those trade names up on the block to get a hold of Ohtani?
Well, it does seem like there's kind of a logjam right now. You know, it seems like with pitchers, you can never have enough depth. With position players, you know, sometimes you need them to play every day or, you know, 4 or 5 times a week to stay in the groove. So, you know, it's probably not a terrible idea to move somebody just to open up some at-bats. But, you know, I mean, a lot of it is who other teams perceive as the most valuable, right? You know, you can have your own internal impression on something, and if the guy that you think is the most valuable doesn't get the right offers, you know, a lot of times you're better off giving people what they want. So, again, that's a long-winded way of saying it's probably not a bad idea to maybe trade one person for a pitcher. That's kind of what you and I were talking about last night, is it just feels like a lot of the bullets are gone, you know, by trading Gleyber Torres, by trading Eloy Jimenez, I mean, and then bringing up like Happ and then, well, they traded Soler last year too. So it's kind of, they got all this depth, you know, it was kind of the envy of everybody, and then they spent it, which, you know, they won a World Series, which you've heard the phrase.
Playoff contention last year.
Flags fly forever, right? You know, that 2016 flag will be up there forever.
December 1st, you're bringing it.
Where
was this material back in January, February?
You know, Doug, it took me a while to get warmed up, and I take it a lot more seriously now. You know, I've got the notes in my head.
You're in full stride.
Yeah, I'm bringing it.
So, I mean, I was in love with Schwarber during the World Series when he came back. What a great story. Last year, he really didn't produce a whole lot. Happ is hitting the ball every which way. I would hate to see Happ go. Love Baez. He's such a versatile player. He can play any position and give Zobrist and Bryant and those guys that rest that they need. And then you got Russell, who when he hits the ball, it seems like it's a home run 9 out of 10 times, and he's got a great glove over at short. So, I mean, if it were up to me, I would put Schwarber and Happ up before I entertain Baez and Russell. But again, when this Ohtani's big concern is he wants the at-bats. So obviously everyone starts thinking American League right away. Theo Epstein actually put together a plan in a 5-day game time scenario. He would pitch day one. He would take off the second day. He would bat the third and fourth game, sit out the fifth. He's ready to pitch again.
Makes sense.
So they put together a plan where they think they'll be able to get him 400 at-bats and pitch and be in a playoff contending team. So there's a lot of upside. But they're doing their due diligence, trying to get Ohtani from overseas over onto the Cubs. And then the final Cubs story, nice little touch after they won the World Series. Some people purchased a horse. They named it Brizzo. And on November 17th, over at Chapel, what is that? Church Hill Downs, not Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill Downs?
They played in Chapel Hill.
Took him to the Dean Dome and walked him around the court.
Battle of Tobacco Road or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, Brizzo won. He's a horse. He's a horse. There. Finally got to that.
They're both horses, though, right? I mean, they're both just studs. That horse is a stud. I mean, the whole team.
Everyone's a stud except us.
That's a fair statement. That's a fair statement.
So, hey, good friend Jeff Bach with Bach Attorney at Law. Your office is just a couple blocks away. I was just down there the other day. We cleaned up some business and talking about getting my wife in to visit with you. And before we came on, we were talking a little bit about legal guardianship and what that entails, what that looks like. You want to go ahead and expand on what we were visiting?
Yeah. So the first thing we talked about, or you don't get to guardianship if you've got a power of attorney, right? And I've been on here before a couple times. We've talked about having wills and powers of attorney. Obviously the wills protect you if something happens to you and you're no longer with us. You're deceased, rest in peace, all that stuff. Not what everybody wants to think about.
Tupac is still alive, everybody. Sorry.
If he had a power of attorney, then people could still act for him. But anyway, so the wills, again, protect you if something, if you're not here with us anymore. A power of attorney, that protects you if you're incapacitated. So, there's obviously a couple different ways you become incapacitated. Number one is like a traumatic event, right? You're in a car accident, you have a traumatic brain injury, you're in a coma, something like that, where you're not able to make decisions for yourself. You're just don't have the capacity to make your own decisions. Then the other primary way is through old age or through kind of a gradual deterioration, right? And so most of the time, it's fairly easy in a traumatic event to tell when somebody does or doesn't have capacity, right? One day you're fine, you're driving your car. The next day, you're in a car accident and you're in a coma. Well, it's not too hard to figure out that if you're in a coma, you can't make your own decisions, right? The deterioration process is a little bit tougher, but generally when I go and try to determine if somebody's doesn't have the capacity to make their own decisions anymore, a lot of times I'm just trying to make sure if they're oriented to their time and place. Do you know what day it is? Do you know what year it is? Do you know what month it is? Do you know who the president is? Do you know who your kids and grandkids are? If you know those kinds of things, usually you're oriented enough to make your own decisions. Now, obviously, there's always exceptions, but again, that you don't even reach that until you don't reach that if you have a valid power of attorney. So if somebody is going through that process, they're beginning the process, as long as they understand what they're doing, they can still sign that power of attorney. So the key is if somebody is diagnosed with one of those diseases that nobody wants to hear about, like Alzheimer's, you get them in while they still have the capacity so that if things don't go the way you want it to or it happens quicker than you expect, you've got a power of attorney that allows somebody that you trust to make decisions for that person. Now, and what that prevents is having to go to court and get a guardianship over them. So guardianship, for the most part, as long as there's nothing too controversial, is never going to be that difficult to do, but it'd probably take you 6 weeks to 6 to 8 weeks, and then would probably cost you around $2,000, as opposed to, wills and powers of attorney, which you can come in right now, get for $300 as a listener of this show, and, that way you're protected if something does happen to you.
And, that's what I was down there signing off the other week on. And how many people do you think, I was one of them. We had a will that needed updated. We did that. But how many people do you think are out there without a will or that power of attorney? And what scares me is, let's say you're a widow or you're on your own, and if you don't have that power of attorney and you go into a coma, then what happens, Jeff?
No, that's a great question, Doug. And, a lot of times, so what would happen is you'd apply for what's called a short-term guardianship. So the guardianship, there's two kinds. There's the short-term and then there's the long-term, right? The long-term one you don't get without a chance for everyone to be heard, okay? The short-term one, to get a guardianship, you need a doctor to write a report saying that they think that somebody needs a guardian, right? So, you always worry about people abusing the legal system, but that's kind of our way that we make sure people don't abuse the legal system, unless a doctor has signed off and said, Doug, somebody needs to be your guardian. I can't just walk in there and say, Pinter's lost it, right? I mean, that might be what I think, yeah. But, that the judge doesn't care what I think. So they're going to look at the doctor's report. So if you have a doctor's report and then you walk in there and say, I need short-term guardianship so I can make financial decisions for this person, or I can make placement decisions for this person, because it's not just the financial aspect, it's where's that person going to be, right? If you're in a coma, I mean, we know how insurance works these days, where it pays for so much, and then you got to do this, or it won't cover this, but it'll cover that. Somebody's got to make those decisions too. So back to your original question is, if you don't have a power of attorney in place, and you don't have, like you're not married, so you don't have joint decision makers, then you have to have, somebody has to go in and get short-term guardianship over you. And then when it's time for the long-term guardianship hearing, you file like kind of an accounting that says, here's what I've done in the meantime. And
Yeah.
I'd say 95, 99% of these things are not contested. The mom needs a guardian. There's 2 kids in town. One of them has more time than the other. They get along. Okay, you take it.
Yeah.
But I have worked on a couple where they were fighting about it, where
sure.
siblings were, saying I should be the one to take care of mom. No, I should be the one to take care of mom. And obviously those are really tough, because for the most part, people are trying to do the right thing. But you've got siblings. You know how it is.
Yeah, and you know what? Everyone procrastinates. I do it all the time. So it sounds like get your ducks in a row, get in, see you. I mean, it was a simple process. You asked me some questions. It was nothing invasive or anything. I did want to hop on that unicycle up in your office there, but you asked a few simple things, and we have a plan in place if things go south. And I don't think people ever plan on being in a coma tomorrow. So there's a plan in place instead of having to be reactionary and to have the siblings fight over things. So if you're a parent out there and you're at the age where your siblings or your kids are in the early 20s or so, and you can avoid these conversations, right? As long as you do your due diligence now. And you mentioned price a little bit. To come in and get a will and a power of attorney is $300 through your office.
Right,
through
and
this
that's
show, correct?
you and your spouse. So yes.
Yeah. So, and if I heard you correctly, you said it had someone not done their due diligence, it could cost around $2,000 to go ahead and go through the court system to get that.
Correct. I mean, you'd have to, at that point, when you file for guardianship, there's a person called the guardian ad litem appointed, and that person's job is to really go out and report on the facts of the case, right? So, you walk in, you say, I need guardianship over my mom, right? Now you've got your physician's report. The physician has said you need guardianship, right? Now the court appoints an attorney who's independent, who goes out and makes a report to the court and says, this is what I think should happen. So, I serve in this role as well. You go out, I interview you, I say, Doug, tell me what you're going to do with this person, tell me what your plan is, tell me why you should be the guardian. I talk to the alleged disabled adult, and I say, do you know what's going on? Are you comfortable with this? Is this all things you feel comfortable with? And again, most, I'd say 95% of the time, it's real straightforward. The disabled person either is so out of it, they don't know what's going on, in which case, I just have to make sure you're going to do the right thing. And then, or there are times where, maybe they're frail, but they're with it somewhat, and they can say, no, that is who I want to make my decisions. Again, I have been through one where this is probably 5 years ago. The woman was a hoarder, and she just refused to move out of her house. And so she was with it. I mean, she knew what was going on, knew who she was, knew where she was, and just had a real strong objection to being put in a nursing home. But again, it wasn't, it wasn't even a mean thing. It was just she was a hoarder. I mean, literally, you walked in the house, and there was one pathway through the house. That was it, and probably junk up to your shoulders or so. For you, that'd probably be your waist, but you get the idea. Junk like really piled high where you could barely see over it. And again, one pathway through the house, dishes in the sink piled up as high as you could see. So again, real sweet lady, real nice lady, totally with it, totally knew what was going on, but just wasn't in a position where she could take care of herself. So that ended up being a trial. She got an attorney. I had to testify as guardian ad litem. Real interesting thing. It's obviously a shame anytime somebody has to leave their house, but again, when you see how somebody lives like that, you say, we can't let you do this. I'm sorry.
I thought you were explaining my son's closet. I mean, he's got basketball cards stacked up, and he knows where all of them are, but it's a nightmare in there. And it sounds like, again, a lot of headache, a lot of hassle can be saved if you just take a little time now. And when I say a little time, maybe a half hour, I was down in your office, and I was in and out and good to go. So Jeff Bach, Bach Attorney at Law, we were just talking a little bit about guardianship and how to do your due diligence. No one ever plans on going into a coma or having Alzheimer's kick in tomorrow, but God forbid, have a plan in place so that way you and your loved ones are protected and what you're working for so hard every day is taken care of. So, hey, to lighten the mood, we were talking a little bit about the Cubs trying to bring in Ohtani. I mean, if they sign him, you and I'll probably be the first ones to go get his jersey, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Same size.
Well,
medium.
Well,
same size jersey.
It'll be hanging next to my closet next to the Fukudome jersey, right?
Oh, yeah. I'll bring over my Sosa, and
yes.
I think I have one. Who was the guy that would always jump in left field when he caught the ball?
Oh, Moises?
Yeah, Moises Alou.
My wife's got a Derek Lee. It's fresh.
Really?
It's beautiful.
Derek Lee. I still like Derek Lee.
Who doesn't?
Let's stay on track here.
Yes.
What do you want to go to? Let's talk a little bit about college football. All right, we got playoffs coming up this weekend.
Good idea.
Here's the top 10. Clemson, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and Auburn are your top 4. Bama's sitting at 5, which I don't know about that. Georgia, Miami, Ohio State, and Penn State round out the top 10. So Clemson this week is taking on Miami, Florida. Clemson's -9. I think Clemson just rolls Miami, Florida. Miami, Florida has been a little hot and cold over the last 3-4 weeks, and Clemson, I think Dabo's got them on a roll. What's your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It just depends. I mean, how many times we're going to see that turnover chain? I'd say if it's 3 times, Miami's got a chance. I'd say if it's less than 3, probably not going to get the job done.
We got to get a turnover chain.
That's what Notre Dame needs, obviously.
For our Frisbee match.
Oh, I love that idea.
For our Frisbee match.
Can we call it a birdie chain, maybe? Like the person with the birdie gets to wear the chain, otherwise, right? Or we're just doing match play? Or
I don't know. Let's talk about that later. So you're taking Clemson this weekend -9?
Let's do it.
All right. So I think Clemson will lock up that number 1 seed for the bowl. Oklahoma against TCU. Oklahoma's sitting in second place right now. They're -7 against TCU, the Horned Frogs. I think Oklahoma takes care of business as well this weekend.
I'm going TCU for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's a rematch, right? Always hard to beat the same team twice. And then number 2, the Big 12 made this big fuss about having a championship game because they felt like their teams were getting jumped at the end of the year. So you know what's going to happen, because it's the only way it could happen, is Oklahoma's going to lose. They're not going to get their team in, whereas if they didn't have the championship game, they would have. That's just how fate works, right? You think you're fixing a problem, and then you're just creating a different problem.
I don't know. I'm going to get this call-out cam rolling, though. Mike, you awake over there? I'm going to call out Jeff Bach, who's right there.
Hi.
Bach, I'm going to bet you a lunch. I'll take Oklahoma -7. You can have TCU for lunch. You want it?
Let's do it.
Done.
Candlelit or no?
No. Okay. No. All right. Well, let's go Sooners. I'm a diehard Sooners fan. Wisconsin, who's got the only undefeated record, sitting at 3rd place, taking on Ohio State. Ohio State -6. What's your take on this game? Where do you see Wisconsin first off?
Man, Ohio State's just so up and down. Like my small lizard brain can't understand how they look so good and then lose by 31 to Iowa. Like it makes no sense. Like,
right.
I can't figure that out. So I guess my thing is I think Wisconsin is a little bit underrated right now. The long story short is I like Wisconsin, but nothing would surprise me.
I'm going to take Ohio State. For our good friend out there, Jeff Griffin. Jeff, if they lose, it's all on you, my good friend. See you at lunch later too, buddy. Ohio State, I got the Buckeyes. I think they blow them out. However, if Ohio State wins, I still don't think it's enough to leapfrog Bama into.
I'm just telling you, man. Wisconsin's defense is no joke. I went to that Michigan-Wisconsin game, and their defense is scary.
Who won that game?
It was Wisconsin, actually. That's why they're
really?
Still undefeated. I know you didn't know that.
No, I had no clue.
You could totally be undefeated and lose a game, right? That makes sense.
So they went into Michigan and took care of
No,
business.
it was at Wisconsin. It was Madison. Great town, buddy. If you ever get a chance to go up and check it out, beautiful town.
I was
much
supposed
fun.
to be there this past week, so didn't
Next
go,
time.
though.
Next time. Next time.
Yeah, heard it's beautiful. So you're taking Wisconsin to win it?
Let's do it.
You think they get into the bowl game?
Are you talking about money line or what? Are we talking?
I'm just talking to win.
Yeah,
win
I think
the
they
game.
will. I do.
You do?
Yeah.
All right.
I think they win. I think they win.
Crazy.
They get in the playoffs, and then they just get shelled by Alabama or somebody. I just think Ohio State is like.
The only reason, though, the one reason I want Wisconsin to win is so Bama doesn't get in. Because if we go to the Auburn-Georgia game, which is going to be a fist fight.
Those are, all right, so the ACC and the SEC are kind of playing games, right? Hard to believe that the winner of those games doesn't get in, right?
I agree, yeah.
All right, and then, Oklahoma's got a spot reserved if they win, right?
It's just if.
when they win, sorry.
Thank you.
When they win by 4, right? So as long as we cover the spread, that's fine. They can win by 4. And then Wisconsin's got a spot if they can win, right?
I agree.
And so then I think Ohio State, the question then becomes if Ohio State wins, then, you compare Ohio State and Alabama because that's who I think it ends up coming down to, and who do you go with?
I would think Bama gets in.
I would think so.
I think the committee's done a great job seeding these teams. Everyone controls their own fate. Ohio State could win, cap off a great season, but I don't think it's enough to get into that playoff because that loss to Iowa.
Oh, it's just it just doesn't make any sense.
It's almost like a loss and a half on the record.
Well, losing to Oklahoma, their other loss was to Oklahoma, which, obviously if you lose to another playoff team, it's like.
Yeah. But Iowa?
No, right. That's what I mean. Like
terrible.
without that Iowa loss, I think they're probably in, maybe not regardless. But anyway, keep going.
So let's not beat a dead horse. Brizzo, Churchill Downs.
Yes.
Also confused with Chapel Hill. Anyways, Clemson, I think the layout of the playoffs would be Clemson takes on Ohio State. Wait a minute. Clemson versus Bama. Okay. I apologize. And then Oklahoma and Auburn. Clemson is a 3-1 favorite in Vegas right now to bring home the title. Oklahoma's 4-1. Auburn's sitting at 9-2, which surprises me because Auburn's played some really, really good games. I think Auburn could make a little bit of noise in this.
Our resident Auburn expert, Mr. Councilman in BNI, was telling me they don't have a running back. He said that the first string running back went out like at the end of the third quarter or into the fourth quarter, like almost at the end of the game. Second string's been out already. Third string went out, and like right now they're sitting on 0 running backs allegedly.
Jason Councilman, you got to fill me in on this when I see you on Wednesdays, man.
He's calling over-unders. He's calling the line. He's like, you might want to tease that 1 or 2 points. He's giving me all the good stuff.
Oh, God love him. Owner of Chick-fil-A up there by Northwoods Mall. That's not a bad idea to grab for lunch, or I know they cater as well.
That's true.
But our good friend Jeff Bach in studio, Bach attorney at law. We talked a little bit about guardianship earlier. Covered a little bit about the Cubs and some moves that they're trying to make during the offseason, as well as the construction, and a little bit about the college football playoff. So who do you think brings home the title? At the end of the day, when the dust settles, who do you have?
You know what? I'm taking Auburn. They're just hot right now. They beat
after you just said their fifth.
Yeah, but
backup running back.
They got it. All right. So if they win this weekend, and according to the pundits, which obviously means they'll lose. According to the pundits, it was like they just rolled Georgia. It was like what 40-14 or something. That's a pretty big margin for error. If they survive this week without a running back, they got 6 weeks to get healthy, right? Or I guess 4 weeks.
It's their defense that holds them in, I think.
But they rolled over, no pun intended, the Tide, and then they rolled over Georgia, and they just whooped two number one teams. I know, it was so nice, right? Played. They just whooped 2 number 1 teams.
Yeah.
So my eyes telling me they're the best team right now, but that just means they'll lose because it's college and it makes no sense. That's how life works.
I see Ohio State beating Wisconsin, Bama slipping in at the 4th slot, and I think Bama brings home the title. Saban's probably just elbow deep in his players right now. And if they get that opportunity, I think they'll seize it. However, if Bama does not get in, I'm in the same boat with you. I think Auburn looks awfully impressive with their defense. Tiger Woods, just a few shots out of the lead. He's sitting, where is Tiger? He's sitting -3 with your leader, Tommy Fleetwood, sitting at 6 under. Tiger's in 8th place. You think Tiger makes any noise this upcoming season other than playing golf? You think he wins a tournament?
So the Golf Channel, because this is the first time he's played in a while, Golf Channel was running his old highlights.
Golf Channel?
Well, I sometimes. I was watching 2005 Masters highlights and 2008 U.S. Open. It's just so much more fun when Tiger's good. So I hope he is.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I hope he is because, you can't believe the roars. That 2008 U.S. Open on 18 when he cans that putt and does his. Awesome.
I think. That was I thought you were Tiger Woods for a second there.
Obviously. I'm not wearing the Sunday red, though, so it's not the same.
It's Friday.
That's true. That's a good point, yeah.
Thank you. So I do think Tiger will not win a tournament in 2018. I think it's good for the game of golf that he's back. I think the young guys, the Rory, who we haven't heard from, Fowler, Dustin Johnson, Spieth, I think those guys have been elevating their game during the offseason. And when you run through the leaderboard, Fowler and Kuchar are sitting at -5. You got Rose, Johnson, and Spieth, who I just mentioned, sitting at 4 under. So I think Tiger will be there. It looks like a lot of the guys are open arms with Tiger welcoming him back.
But aren't there only like 18 players in this tournament or something weird? Isn't that right?
Yeah, no cut.
Is that, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, no cut. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah. Hey, anyways, game on over there at the Hero World Challenge. Tiger sitting 8th out of 18.
That's pretty
sounds like
top 50%.
Making money.
Pretty good, yep.
We got to wrap it up, says our good friend Mike. Jeff, appreciate you coming on. Jeff Bach, attorney at law. My name's Doug Pinter on Daily Energy. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, Doug.
PeoriaLife.com